Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to the coverage of the 2017 Spring Split Finals of the Ragnarok. I am Daniel Arvil Fontos, and joining me today on the analyst desk once again is Rob Celtic Tiger Price and Celtic Tiger Brennan. I messed up the name. So Rob, close to drinks. Price is going to be the one.
Everyone can be me today.
Get it out of the way now.
That's an interesting start to this. But anyways, welcome, guys. Good
Thank you. Yeah.
So we have a best of 5 series on our hands on patch 7.7. The two teams, of course, competing still for the finals, or the trophy rather, are going to be Polite and Mature, and their opponents are going to be Veni Vidi Vici, who I want to focus on first because they had the bumpier of the rides coming into the finals.
Yeah, so we see Veni Vidi Vici. They have this really solid lineup. We have Bwipo in the top lane, Maxilal in the jungle, Poikin in the mid lane. We then have Vardags and Touch as the bot lane duo, which is, again, a really solid team in terms of solo play. A lot of people also recognize Vardags from Unicorns of Love, of course. So in terms of solo play alone, they're doing quite well. We didn't necessarily see that translate into really solid macro play, so we're hoping they're improved so far.
Yeah, and speaking of solid macro play, I got to look at their opponents, Polite and Mature. They've just been absolutely phenomenal, and particularly, with the lineup that they have, Dan DD in the top lane, they've got Ploxy coming in the jungle, we've got the mid lane, who's going to be Kakan, we've got Darkseid in the AD carry position, and then as well, we've also got Quickset in the bottom lane. And they've just had phenomenal macro play coming into this. We were touching on their semi-final game, which they looked like a completely different team from the quarterfinals, where they played so smooth, they were picking up objectives left, right and centre, and there just didn't seem to be an answer for them.
One of the things with Veni Vidi Vici, though, is definitely we've looked at this team that, yes, we were talking about they potentially struggled in terms of macro play. However, they did manage to pull it back. They beat their enemies Serbi in the semis, and then you saw them actually take out a decent quarterfinal matchup against XI, which looked a lot cleaner, obviously. So looking forward now, I think they've had 2 weeks to prepare. They know who their opponents are very, very clearly. I'm hoping that we've seen that improvement in terms of macro play, because the solo play is definitely there.
So talking about the matchup against Serbi specifically, we have seen Serbi Esports taking an inhibitor pre-10 minutes against them. However, the team just managed to drag the game out, and past 30 minutes with their exceptional macro play, as you have mentioned already, they are turning those games around. But we're hoping that in these past 2 weeks, they have managed to bridge those gaps and just not allow something like that happen again.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing we saw. We talked about game 1, they managed to lose in terms of macro play straight up. Game 2, they lost a 9-minute inhibitor due to really poor... it was effectively a push to base race.
I mean, it's kind of what it is. It was
enough.
a mistake. It was a mistake coming out from Vardags. He tries to go underneath the turret as Ashe, ends up taking the terror aggro, and then dies still with flash and heal still available. I mean, that's a big error to make in this type of game, and they were lucky to come back. I think realistically, it was poor play from Serbi Esports that allowed them to do that. But this won't fly against Polite and Mature. They will demolish you if you make errors like that.
We could even go earlier and talk about more so as a team. Yes, Vardags made the micro mistake, but the base race in the first place was an odd call, and it really didn't work out for them, because the reason they then ended up dying before he made that mistake was the fact they had to dive the inner tower because someone was there to defend it already from Serbi, whereas they'd sent no one to defend their own base, which quickly went down. They lost the inhibitor, and yes, they came back, but we were talking about it. Was it really, really good play from Veni Vidi Vici? Was it poor play from Serbi? And honestly, it was about half and half. So Veni Vidi Vici, a lot to clean up, especially from those first 2 games. We saw it in game 3. I want to see it come through now in the finals.
So if we don't specifically focus on, let's say, summoner spell usage, but the overall macro, how does Veni Vidi Vici fix what they have messed up against Serbi?
Well, one of the things I'd really like to look at is this top lane matchup, particularly when you've got Bwipo has been a shining light, realistically, for Veni Vidi Vici. He's played phenomenal games in the likes of the Nautilus, where, in my opinion, he really carried the team quite a bit in that game, and just showed up. That was actually the game where they lost that 9-minute inhibitor, and it was his TP flanks that were forcing fights when they were in good positions, and it was just impossible for Serbi Esports to really react. And as well, you've got Dan DD on the other side, who hard carried on that Renekton in the quarterfinals as well, when the team was looking much, much shakier. And his Jax performance as well was incredible in the semi-finals. He got that massive counter-strike off in the middle lane, ended up taking down a whole bunch of people using the auto-attack resets and the Titanic Hydra. It was amazing to watch. So I think I really want to see how these guys go up against each other, because I think that could be a big deciding factor in this.
Yeah, and we saw that as well. Bwipo always being the engaged for the team is always going to be a big decider in terms of macro play, because he starts the team fights. So if he can get them, great. If he can't, his team's going to struggle. And on the other side, DD, you were talking about him like really hard carrying on that Jax, and especially in that game too, they really needed that hard carry. So top lane matchup going to be important. But another matchup I'm really interested in talking about is this bot lane matchup, because we've only seen the 2 games so far of the Darkseid Quickseth combo, but what we did see was absolutely phenomenal. The 1 game Darkseid comes back from subbing out for Kanyo, they immediately fix every macro issue we saw in the quarterfinals. Polite and Mature just completely decimate Buff Jinx in terms of macro play. And it's the weirdest thing, because of all the people to sub out and then suddenly fix your macro play with, the AD carry is the last person you'd suggest. But maybe it was just a team comfort thing. Maybe it was just a we fixed the quarterfinal issue thing. Whatever it is, I think a lot of it comes down to how that bot lane plays. And then looking towards the Vardag's touch combo, if they end up starting to lose and they're not able to get that solo play, it's going to be that much harder for DD to make that up.
So talking about Polite and Mature, you have already mentioned that we have basically seen 2 versions of the team, depending on who the AD carry was. So knowing who the AD carry is today, what do you expect coming into this matchup? Are they going to be able to play to the same level of macro that they have showed with Darkseid?
I would expect so. I mean, we saw them play with him throughout that Buff Jinx series, and we didn't really see that many weaknesses. We saw they didn't make that many solo plays towards the bot lane, but they were simply able to wait. They scaled up, and then they were able to make these team fights work. I think that's punishable, though. We've seen Vardags and Touch, in terms of solo play, can punish. They can play forward. I'll be interested to see whether they decide to punish that bot lane, even using the jungler ganks potentially to turn it, and whether that could be one of these big deciding factors coming into this.
Yeah, I think Darkseid is just more of a vocal player when you compare it to the likes of Kanyo, not from a personality standpoint, just when you're the sub coming into a team, you don't want to be shouting to help bot lane. And if you look at what happened in that game where they had the incredible macro play, it was this quick turnaround on the bottom side with the call to throw down the GP ultimate, get the support caught out, they get that tear in the bot lane, and that just snowballed very, very quickly out of control. So I think what Darkseid just brings is this voice in the bottom side of the map going, this is what the call needs to be. And I think that's where he brings that extra macro play.
Something that we've seen even the likes of Double Lift doing, just when they join a team, you see that suddenly there's just a little bit more of a shift towards bot lane when things either start to go very right or start to go very wrong. And yes, sometimes that can affect their team play, but clearly here, it's not doing that at all. And due to just straight up team synergy and practice, it's working out really well for this Polite and Mature lineup.
So just one more thing that I'm interested in before we go to predictions would be that now you have mentioned the GP snowballing out of control really effectively by just using the ult and not joining the team fights physically. What bans are we actually expecting to come out in the series, this first match?
I think you're going to have to look towards, again, well, I've already kind of touched on the top lane. I think you need to get Renekton off the table. Dan had a phenomenal game on that champion. And I think that's definitely going to be something. And as well, looking at the bottom side, Karma and Nami have all been picked up consistently for Veni Vidi Vici. Whereas on the other side, Quickseth has a plethora of different champions he's played. He's got the Braum, he's got the Thresh, he's got the Zyra, he's got many more champions that he's had great games on. So I think by putting pressure on that bottom side of the map, it could really help out these guys.
Okay.
I think one of the things I'd be looking for, first of all, is Syndra is this massively contested pick. Both players won 3 out of 5 games on Syndra, won 3 out of 4 games on Syndra. That's obviously a mid laner they're both very focused on, even playing it into counters such as Vlad and Echo. So I'd expect that either gets banned or first picked on blue side. However, going back to this bot lane matchup I brought up, it's Caitlyn Ashe from both guys only so far.
All right.
So Caitlyn Ashe, at least one of them banned, one of them first picked, or some measure of that. I expect if they manage to get to ban phase 2, they're gone.
So I would also like to get a quick predictions out of you guys. How do you think this series is going to end up then?
I'm looking at Polite and Mature to take this. We talked about their superior macro play that we've seen so far. However, I don't think it's going to be as clean, potentially, because Veni Vidi Vici have had the time to prepare. So I'd expect a 3-1 in favor of Polite and Mature. Veni Vidi Vici should be able to come back and at least take a game, but Polite and Mature have just been so clean.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree slightly with Tig. I think that it's been... Veni Vidi Vici have had enough time over the 2 weeks to really try and fix the cracks that have been there. I think these teams are very evenly matched across the board. I'm going to take it to 3-2. I think this is going to be an incredibly close series, and I'm just barely giving the edge to Polite Mature because of that great performance that they had in that semi-finals. It was just incredible to see.
All right, so with that, we have the expectations of the analysts that's pretty much set in. However, now I would also like to involve our lovely casters, because I'm pretty interested as to what do you guys think this series is going to bring to the table?
Well, I think it's fair to say that I'm expecting some pretty high